The Pemaquid River has its source about 25 miles from the ocean in a pond by the same name. The upper end of Pemaquid Pond is near Federal Highway 1, about 7 miles east of Damariscotta. It's a rather shallow pond, approximately 6 miles in length and about 1 mile wide at its greatest width. This pond leads almost directly into a smaller and deeper one. It's now named Bisky Pond, but years ago it was known as Little Pemaquid Pond. It's not very wide and about 3 miles in length, and along the shores of these two ponds are many cottages or camps, and more are being built. At the outlet from Bisky, the Pemaquid really becomes just a narrow flowing river, winding through pasture lands and fields until it reaches Bristol Mills. At certain places in the village, it can be seen from State Road 130. In the village, it is spanned by 3 bridges, one of them a wonderful piece of stonework. Over 70 years ago, there were 2 natural waterfalls here on the river, with a sawmill on each one. As a child, I knew them as the Weeks Mill and the Robbins Mill in Cooper Shop. They fell into disuse, and afterward, above the site of the Weeks Mill, the river was dammed and a penstock built to control the river's flow to a building to generate electricity. All that is gone, but the dam was repaired and the water above it has made a wonderful swimming pool. Some of the water near the river flows on through the village and near the town hall. As of old, it turns sharply winding southward. It can be seen from the Round Pond Road as it flows slowly and silently, just a narrow stream through a large meadow. On it flows till it reaches a small waterfall in so-called Hatchtown, where years ago was erected one of the largest grist mills in this section. As a child, I knew the old gray weather-beaten 2-story building as the Old Waterman Mill, named for the last owner, Waterman Hatch. Now all is gone. A few years ago, some piled up rocks and a few old timbers marked the spot. After that small waterfall, the river broadens out into Boyd's Pond, the smallest of the 3 ponds that mark its course. After one crosses the bridge, near where the old mill used to be, and goes up a slight rise, one can see Boyd's Pond from the Round Pond Road. In the summer, at the southern end of Boyd's Pond, the same as at the outlet from Bisky, the stream is almost impassable because of lily pads. On bright sunny days, many fragrant white lilies are blooming in these 2 places. Of course, they are found elsewhere in the ponds and along the river. Near the shores, among other plants, there is the broad-leafed, tall-spiked blue pickerel weed, the small white or pinkish-white blossoms of several kinds of water plantain, and at one spot I knew about was the rare red cardinal flower. About a mile below Boyd's Pond, at a very narrow part of the river, 3 piles of rocks tell the story that there was once a crude bridge over the water. It was called the Stringers. Footpaths led up through the woods on each side. For years, many people crossed over the river on this bridge to visit relatives and friends and attend church, as it saved the long walk down the road, through the village of Pemicwood Falls, then up the road on the other side of the river. A little over half a mile from the Stringers, nature made a perfect place for generation after generation to enjoy, the old swimming hole. The village children always referred to it as going up to Fresh for a swim. Only a turn or 2 more between fields, the river comes to another small waterfall. It's just above the bridge that spans the river at Pemicwood Falls. Years ago, by this small falls, enough remained to show that once there had been a grist mill there. Probably it was owned by Robert Given. He was the richest man around here at the time. Perhaps in days long ago, the Pemaquid tribe of Indians may have camped near here when they came to fish for alewives in the springtime. Alewives, like salmon, seek fresh water to spawn, and, like salmon, fight their way up and over rushing water. The alewives here go up over the falls and on to Bisky and Pemaquid ponds to spawn. Calm and with hardly a ripple, the river reaches the place where the old sawmill stands. No one knows just when it was built. For many, many years, it was run by water power for sawing logs. It's here, over the largest waterfall of its entire course, that the Pemaquid makes the final descent to become a tidal river. Broad fields extend out on each side of the tidewater, and all this section is rich in history of the past. Along its banks, old cellars and excavations tell their story of long ago. While we are near the fields next to the river, let's go back to the time of the early settlers. It was estimated there were 15 to 17 farm families living along the two banks of the Pemaquid River up as far as the falls. In an old newspaper, the Pemaquid Messenger, appears an article on Old Pemaquid by R.H. Sewall. Among other things, he writes, "There were many families, a few tradespeople, millmen, blacksmiths, tanners, and ship joiners. At the present time on the eastern shore are homes and cottages and a small motel. In a sheltered cove, fishing boats have their anchorage, with the fish houses of their owners on the shore. Back on the west side are the ruins of another old landmark, the Tibbetts Steamboat Landing, where the Bath boats and the boats from Portland to Rockland stopped. At one time, up on the hill from the wharf, was a large hotel with a noted mineral spring on its grounds. There was also a bowling alley near the wharf. Just below this is a cove that forms a perfect harbor. It's not unusual for a passing yacht to take advantage of this place for a night or two. It was here that the first boats that came from England to fish and trade for furs with the Indians found a safe anchorage. On the opposite side is the historical place where the first Pemaquid settlement and fort was located. All the ground around there holds relics of the past. Around 1630, the first of 4 forts was erected. It was erected mainly to protect against pirates. Dixie Bull, a pirate, did come to plunder the fort and the neighboring planters. At one time, not far from the fort, was a large fish factory. Then there was Gilbert's Lobster Pound and Restaurant with overnight camps. Below the fort was a wharf run by John Partridge where lobsters could be consumed. Now the state has bought the property where the fish factory and Gilbert's were to maintain it as an historic site and museum. Under the direction of Helen Camp, an archaeologist, house foundations have been uncovered, cannonballs found, and many artifacts and relics of the past. It's understood that the state intends to carry on this work. My memory goes back to the old fort grounds. When I was a small child, there was just the big uncovered rock with 1607 painted on it in white. At one place, land had been excavated, and I looked down and saw the old paving stones that were there. In 1908, the state of Maine sponsored the restoration of Fort William Henry. It is maintained by the state, and there it stands, the last landmark beside the Pemaquid River as it flows out to sea.